We have a massive Leafs update to go over today as a surprising signing is incoming as multiple new reports have dropped, revealing some brand new updates surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs and their plans as free agency has officially opened up. We're to break down these reports and discuss what it means going forward as Treliving prepares for something huge. Before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Your guys' support has been absolutely unbelievable. If you're part of that percentage who aren't subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button. There's lots to go over today. Leafs are in a very interesting situation right now. Free agency is open. It's died down a little bit as it pertains to most of the big Leafs, internal jobs are done. Tavares is signed. Matthew Knies is signed. Mitch Marner's trade has been made official today as well. There is a lot of things that are going on, but it doesn't stop reports from still dropping. As free agency has opened up, there's some moves that are happening, in real time. Brock Besser, Corey Perry, all signed elsewhere. A lot of the Leafs targets remain in play. And a new report this morning from Chris Johnson has dropped, revealing that not about Nicholas Waugh, which is also confirmed, by the way. Nicholas Waugh from Marner, it was 1-for-1, but it is focused up on the Leafs. Now, you can see this here. The Leafs are currently interested in pursuing Mikael Granlund, but it is considered not super likely as around 12 teams are reportedly in on him. So let's start here. I think Mikael Granlund actually makes some sense for the Leafs, and I think that if they do some other external work surrounding Kelly Yarncroke and, of course, David Kemp, this could be a serious option here. And again, he says it's not the most likely option simply because of the fact that he still makes more money or will be making more money than some of the other guys. But Darius, the Leafs have been linked to Mikael Granlund for a while now. And it seems like out of all the players here, a lot of the big names are being talked about. And even Elliot Friedman came out and said there's a lot of St. Louis noise around Mikael Granlund. What are your thoughts on this? And I do believe, even though it might not be the most likely play, we've seen the Leafs pull off the not the impossible, but the unlikely by trading Mitch Marner. I'm not going to rule this out, and I think there's a solid chance that if he goes to market and things like that, the Leafs are going to be pretty involved.
And he's a great player. That's why so many teams are involved here. And like you can see here from Elliot Friedman, St. Louis is just another team that's involved. There's a bunch that want Mikael Granlund, and he would make sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs. As it stands at the time of recording, the Toronto Maple Leafs have about $5.8 million in cap space. Now, like you mentioned, Ryan Reeves counts towards that. They still have Calle Yarncroke. They still have David Kampf. If they move off of those contracts, now you're looking like you got like $10-11 million. You can go out and make a big splash still. You can sign a top free agent, although, they're dwindling at this point in time. Of course, Brock Besser has signed. Nikolai Ehlers has, it doesn't sound like he's going to sign today at the time of this recording, but you can still go out and make a significant move like a Mikael Granlund. Now, the only thing that is scaring me in terms of Mikael Granlund, because of his production, if you look at his projected cap hit, what he might be making, it's somewhere in the $6 million range, maybe $5 to $6 million, right? But with Christian Dvorak and his contract extension, or him signing, I should say, in Philadelphia, this makes me think that Granlund can go up to almost $7 million at this point. So that's going to get pretty scary, I think, because this is a guy who can put up some points. We saw it in Dallas. They really, really wanted him at the trade deadline. They got him, and he played really well in the playoffs. So things could get very interesting here. I feel like he's still high up on the list, but as options kind of dwindle here, I do wonder if the Leafs look to upgrade via trade instead. As you can see here, right? Like his contract projection, I feel like he's going to get way more than this now at this point, but it could be via trade, or if it is via free agency, I feel like they're going to try and fill at the rest, like the bottom of the lineup, and maybe just run for one more season John Tavares as your second line center.
Yeah, it really depends how aggressive they want to get, how much they make. 5.4 is the projected. You were kind of seeing it go for $1 million over what the projected is here by the cap hit Scotia stats. So it's going to be interesting, but again, he's coming out 66 points. Like, he would be perfect. Now, I think that the Leafs, like you mentioned, are more likely to go after a trade. And I think a bigger trade is the most likely outcome here, but free agency just opened up. So of course, I'm going to dive into some of this. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on Mikael Granlund. I think it's possible. Elliot Friedman coming out and saying that, like, he's probably going to be on the move here, right? He's going to be leaving St. Louis, we would assume. So that opens up the door for Toronto, and he hasn't signed yet as of the time of recording. So I think the Leafs are going to be a sneaky good target for them. But some other players that he mentioned are two different guys. So of course, Brandon Tanev and Tanner Jeannot. And these are, this is where it becomes a little bit interesting, because these are also, I would say, a little bit more likely than, of course, Mikael Granlund, though I think they're all, have some likelihood of possibility here. And we know Darren Dreger came out before free agency opened up and said it's going to take some work to keep the fever of the frenzy alive today, but good players are drawing crowds. Ehlers and Besser are high on lists. We saw that Brock Besser's gone now back to Vancouver. Andrew Mangiapane and Tanner Jeannot will also have tough decisions. Multiple teams interested. And we know the Leafs are interested in Mangiapane. We know the Leafs are interested in Tanner Jeannot as well. And Tanner Jeannot is a very intriguing name here. He's not going to make a ton. He only put up 13 points in 67 games, but he's a big player, and he can complement what the Leafs kind of kind of counteract, I guess, what the Leafs' shortcomings were in their acquisition so far with guys like Michelli in the form of Tanner Jeannot. You can get him for extremely cheap here, hopefully under 2 million. And then, of course, you still have cap space, especially if you cut out Yarncroke and Camp, which seems to be likely at this point for guys like Mangiapane, or maybe even Mikael Granlund and Tanner Jeannot could, in theory, both be Leafs, depending on what, of course, Granlund ends up making. But it's going to be interesting here. Tanner Jeannot, I think he'd fit pretty well, just given the other identity on this team, and after they brought in Michelli and Steven Lorentz.
I think that he could look good on the Leafs. And I think, if the salary cap didn't exist, I feel like I would rather Tanner Jeannot on the team than a guy like Michael Pezzetta, who's also, rumored to go to the Leafs. With Pezzetta, you get 0 points and a guy who just kind of flies around out there and can be a bit of a pest, right? Like, that's good. I think the Leafs are looking for that type, right? They're going to sign at least one guy like that. But Tanner Jeannot, I'm a little worried about the cap hit and what it might look like. He's projected to get close to $2 million, right? So if you can get him for $1 million, that could make sense. But he only offers you 13 points over the course of almost an entire season, 67 games, like you saw. Yep. So, he could be good on the team, but there's a reason why, I don't know why Tampa gave up everything that they did for him. And then there's a reason why he ended up going to the Kings right after that Tampa did not hang on to him, right? So I would be very careful with this one. I feel like there's other players that can bring similar things to the table, especially for the cap hit that he's projected to make. So would be a little, I'm a little skeptical of this one. I would be careful with this one because he's not going to offer too much offensively. That's not necessarily why he's there for. But then, like, if you have other options like a Pezzetta that's maybe league minimum, maybe you look at that one. He's not going to play as much though, so keep that in mind, right? He's not going to be in the lineup as much, but there are some other options on the table still as well via free agency.
Yeah, I think I like it. I like the idea of it, depending how much he makes. If it gets anywhere above like 1.5, 1.6, probably not. But I don't know. It's maybe fill out the fourth line there and the identity there. But speaking of the identity, Brandon Tanev is the last player that Chris Johnson linked to the Leafs this morning. He did say it's unclear how enthusiastic the Leafs are actually about that. I like this option more than Tanner Jeannot for what it's worth as well. Yeah. Going to make similar money. I would assume Brandon gets a little bit more. He's 33. Obviously, brothers with Chris Tanev. This one is one that I feel like everyone thinks is going to happen. It almost seems inevitable, but yet, of course, you have to see if it actually happens. It gives you 22 points, which is solid, and honestly gives you more than what the Leafs got last year from David Kampf and, of course, Pontus Holmberg, who's going to be on the way out as well. So I like this one. Makes the most sense out of all of them. But the more you look at some of these free agents, like obviously Mangiapane is probably, the best here. I wouldn't mind if they overpay for a guy like Mikael Granlund. Obviously, don't have a ton left, but like given the other free agents, it's the pickings are becoming very, very short here. And maybe Brad's preparing something bigger than we thought, either in the form of Mikael Granlund or most likely in the form of a trade.
Probably in the form of a trade. But to get to Brandon Tanev, I would like this move. And I kind of do agree with you that, maybe you shoot for the stars at this point and try, no pun intended, and try and get Mikael Granlund, because obviously he can make a difference. And then when you're, scraping the bottom here and maybe they're getting, $1 million to $2 million, they're not going to give you too much in terms of point production, but they would fill in that identity a little bit, right? But with Brandon Tanev, I like the move. And like for the salary cap, you know what you're getting with him. I feel like he can put up some points here and there, can chip in for some goals, similar to like a Steven Lorentz type. Of course, not the same type of player or even stature or anything like that. But the other thing I think is interesting is, and you brought it up, Chris Tanev's on the team. His brother's on the team. We know brothers can kind of push each other, right? So there is that dynamic as well, that if the team's not playing well and all these things, they can kind of go at each other, maybe motivate the team as well. So that's another dynamic. And I don't think they've ever played with each other. I could be incorrect in that, but I don't think they've played with each other. So I think it could be a very interesting dynamic there, and it would be a feel-good story for him to come back. He's from here, right? And again, he would offer something for the Leafs. That's exactly the type of player that they're looking for in the bottom of their lineup, and it would push a guy like, Scott Laughton higher in the lineup, where I think he should be probably on the third line, right? Maybe with Nick Waugh, that's hard to play against, right? And that's kind of what we're looking for in the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I do think, if we're going, one or the other versus Brandon Tanev, I would definitely prefer him over Tanner Jeannot, just based on point production, because I feel like they bring similar things to the table in terms of the way that they play. But I'm a little skeptical of Tanner Jeannot, and obviously Mikael Granlund. You would have to shoot for the stars on that one. Could be almost $7 million at this point. I don't know if it'd make too much sense for the Leafs, but they could make it work if they made some other moves, like moving out Calle Yarncroke, David Kampf, maybe even Ryan Reeves. That, I do expect them to do those things, but it's how quickly are you going to do it, because there's other teams involved here. Yeah,
let us know below your thoughts are. It's a fluid situation. We'll keep you up to date as things happen. Might be a slow burn on the Leafs front, but it's the place to be for daily Leafs news. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. See you there.